remember how long, guess I always been this way, running 90 miles a minute all night and day, doing things that'd kill a lesser man or get him locked up tight. Never meant to hurt nobody, no I ain't like that, just trying to make my way any way I can. There's a lot of folks out there wanna slow me down, make me act right.
My name is Adam Hodson, from Fort Wayne, Indiana, kinda. We've been up here like 20 years, roughly. Came up here to go to school and just kinda never left. Racing wise, I've always been a car like junkie ever since a little kid. My dad always kinda had junk cars sitting out in the yard, and growing up we would just play in the cars. Me and my brother, they'd be sitting there next to each other in the backyard on flats, but we'd be sitting in there acting like we're racing each other. And probably though got kind of a late start into racing in a way. I don't think I ever went down the drag strip till I was probably, I don't know, 19, until I had my Camaro. So I bought that in 2000. So yeah, I was 19 or 20 years old, and you know, always liked racing, but had never went drag racing, and decided to go one time. You know, ended up a group of us locals. We probably had 5 or 6 cars, and you know, you race around the street a little bit, but then it was time to go to the track and kind of see if we can go a little faster. And once you go, it's just like one of those things that bite you. And ever since then, it's turned into, you go to, we went to like one event, we went test and tune, and then you go to one event, and then the next year, like, I want to do a little more, and you do a couple more test and tunes and a couple of events, and it rolled from being, you know, that one time or 2 times a year into once a month, then twice a month, and 3. Now it's like every weekend, and it's probably been every weekend for the last 3 or 4 years. So. You know, didn't necessarily start racing, wasn't a junior dragster kind of kid or nothing, but definitely once we got into it, it was like full bore, get her done. So for me, again, the Camaro was the first thing I ever took to the track, and I'm probably a little bit different than most guys. I mean, that's the car I've had my whole time. I mean, I bought it when it was really a pretty low mileage car, like 60,000 miles. I drove around the street all the time, did some racing stuff with it. I mean, the first pass I made, it went 1540. So, like, it was literally a 241 gear. It was a small block with, I think at that time we had Edelbrock heads on it and Demon carb or whatever. And, you know, that's how it started. We're in 1540s, and then you get the bug, and then it's like, all right, we got to go faster one way or another. And then that's how the addiction starts and how your problem begins, because then it's what can we do to keep going faster. So it's gears and everything. So I think probably some of my most memorable races in a lot of ways were some of the cool stuff that I've been able to do with it over all the years. When I first got the thing done back then, it would have been like 2003 or 4. Me and my dad, we went a lot of places and traveled together and raced the car. And it was, you know, it was slow as hell. It was like a 1350 car, but that was fast for us then. And we went and did Camaro Fest up in Michigan, which was it was kind of like a car show drag race thing. And one thing we got to do was take the car and drive your car around Michigan International Speedway, which at the time was really cool because we'd never done anything like that. So like, then we went and raced at Milan. So like in one weekend, we got to go drive around a big circle track, kind of get that experience. And you drove the car to the racetrack and raced some like little street heads up class stuff. And then you sat around and told everybody about it the last day. But so you know, it's maybe not the most exciting thing. And we've also had a great time doing the street outlaw stuff with it. We were very fortunate enough to go down and race Memphis with the car. I think that would have been about 2 or 3 years ago, which was neat. I mean, same deal. Not everybody gets to do things like that. So that's one thing I love about my car, and I always try to do fun stuff with it, is because it's what all my kids grew up in. It's what I've had since day one. And so anytime we get a chance to do a race with it or something with it that's different or something that's a once in a lifetime, you know, driving out to Rocky Mountain Race Week last year with it and driving, you know, 1,500, 1,800 miles out there, and didn't end that well, but we still got to drive it through the mountains and do all that stuff. That's as much fun to me as anything. So we have some friends in Kentucky, especially back then, that we were racing with up here, mostly radial stuff at the time. And you know, JJ's thing was I think maybe only a year and a half in. So a lot of people, including us, hadn't done much asphalt racing and whatnot like that. And it was mostly big tire stuff. They had a couple small tire guys that couldn't make it. And they actually invited Kenny first, and Kenny was on board, so we thought we were just going to take Kenny's car down. And then they had another small tire car drop out, and they said, hey, do you want to bring your Camaro? And it's like, shit, hell yeah, of course. Like, we want to go down and have a chance to race those guys. I mean, you don't know what you have for them, but you're going to bring whatever you do have. So we got to go down there and do that, and we drove the RV down and took a bunch of. That's how actually Sean and us kind of first started hanging out. And dude, it was such a cool experience because those guys are so real. Like, if you've ever met them before, if you watch it on TV, you think, that's like scripted, or they just say this stuff for TV. But it's not that way at all. That's very much who those guys are. They love it, and one of the neat things to see from them, which was similar to our group of guys, was they really are kind of a family of friends and family of racers. So it was cool to see them have so much fun doing it together. They just enjoyed racing, and when one of them was racing, everybody else was helping. If they were pouring the puddle, or they were lining them up, or they were cleaning the tires off and doing whatever, their whole team worked together on every car every time they came up. So that was just a neat thing to see. And we got my ass kicked, of course, by Carp, and that car's fast. I mean, that's what you learn going down there too, is especially at that time. I mean, those cars are fast. It isn't these guys aren't faking it on TV. It isn't anything like that. Their stuff is legit, very, very fast, and they're good at that style of racing, especially. We've raced, roadkill nights and some stuff that's been on that kind of a street stuff, and then we've done at that time I did some street stuff, but mostly on concrete, not really any asphalt at that time. Roadkill nights, running that event on asphalt, was probably the first asphalt stuff we'd really done. Everything else at the time was on concrete, and back then concrete was not slow, but it wasn't like it is now. Like, you can go as fast as you go at the track damn near if you don't start on concrete or race concrete now. Back then it wasn't like that at all. The concrete was it was like the step down from radial racing. You just went and could do concrete, and everybody was somewhat similar speeds, and now it's evolved all the way down to it needs to be bare asphalt, not just bare asphalt, like it needs to look like pebbled out, like loose gravel kind of asphalt to kind of bring everybody down to a level field and stuff. So yeah, for us, I always liked all that because it's the tuning challenge. It's the ultimate. Like, can you make your car go down this track one way, or down the street, or the bad surface one way or another? It doesn't matter how much money you got. It doesn't matter who you know. It really honestly comes down to you being able to take your car and do that, because you can't. If you're a guy that has to email your tuner to get something, you really can't do that in this type of racing, because there's not the time. You're normally maybe somewhere that has zero reception, so it really makes you show your tuning skills of what it can take, whether it's a lot of chassis, which is stuff we've probably learned and got a lot better at, especially Nick, in the last year or so. But in the past, it was much more power management. So it didn't have the Camaro very long. Kind of did, say the heads and the gears and all that kind of stuff. And then it's like time to find out who's the fastest in your group again. And I lived in Kokomo at that time, and there's, shockingly enough, in the early 2000s, there's a couple guys in town that had Oldsmobiles that are actually very fast, and they'd run like mid-12s on the street, and they were full street cars. And so we had a spot that was just outside of town that at the time was all brand new. They built a new Chrysler plant out there, and we called it 50 because it was County Road 50, and it was 4 lanes wide of like awesome concrete, and then it was like 2 miles long. So dude, back then we all ran quarter mile and stuff mostly anyway, so you could run this thing, whatever you had, you could run it out, and there was shut down for days. And I lived in Fort Wayne, so I'd go home, I'd drive the car home on the weekends, and we'd race a little bit. And I remember the first time I took it home, and I'd never been on slicks before. I always had radial on it, drag radial or street tire kind of deal. And went down there, my buddy had a set of slicks on some I think they were just maybe some typical rally wheel Chevy stuff. And I'd never driven, I never had a slick on the car ever, never driven on slicks. It was all new to me then. And I remember driving over to 50, and it was probably like 3 or 4 miles from the guy's house. And the car is just it's just that feeling. If you've ever been on slicks for the first time, they're not stiff walls. It's I remember driving it, and it's just everywhere, all over the place. And we get out there, and we're racing around. We could make 4-lane wide hits was badass, like Z-Max Jr. here. So we'd run 4 cars wide, and it was awesome. And we're out there having a good time, and I can't remember if won or lost, but one of the cool things about that spot too was if the cops were coming, there was kind of only one way to get there, and they'd come off the highway and they would be at the other end of that 2-mile stretch. So we're getting ready to make another pass. We got the cars pulled in, and boom, there's lights down there. We're like, oh shit, right? But that's when like the adrenaline and your blood just like, here we go. So I got no exhaust in the car. I think I had cutouts at that time actually, and I had them open, so it's screaming loud. So I'm like, oh shit, jump in. There's the 2-mile road, and then there's just a single 2-laner that goes into this 4-lane, and there's one other country road that's a beat up old one to get out of there. So in the car, freaking shoot down that road, and it must have been in the fall because corn was up. I just remember jumping in the car and just fucking on it, drive down there, and then I'm trying to find a spot because I could still see the lights over the corn, and there was like an old farmhouse deal with a long driveway, and I just heard to whip that thing into there, drove down their lane, and just shut everything off and was just sitting there. And I'm just like, you can hear all the sirens, and I'm just like, man, there was probably like 10 of us out there. You're just thinking like, who got away, who didn't get away? And I remember just sitting there like nice and quiet, just all pumped up, wondering what to do, and like, all right. And then I thought, I was probably sitting there 15 or 20 minutes, and then I'm like, okay, now I got to get home. I'm going to drive all through the country and trying to weave my way back around because who knows who's got caught, who told them, who else is there. So like, you know, the car's got open exhaust, so you can hear me out in the country for like miles away. And I just finally took off, went back the long way around, just meandered my way home, and got home, and everybody made it. You know, it's one of those deals, you all get back to the spot again, you're like, all right, everybody's here, we all made it, nobody got in trouble. It's like, whew, good deal. And that was a really cool time. 50 was awesome, and for a lot of years there was no issues there. And I tried to race back there not that long ago, and unfortunately that area's kind of grown up a little bit, and at the time there was like only one house on the street, so if that one guy was gone, then you didn't really have to worry about much. But now there's more houses, and it kind of killed the spot, unfortunately. There was a great spot in Shelbyville that Nick had found a few years back that was like we got to have a couple nights out there that before there was any issues. But man, it was actually a really nice concrete road. It was an industrial park deal, and one side was not as good as the other side as far as if you got off. So I bashed up one of my B-lock rings the one time because it was, you know, had the curved edge, and made a hit down it racing Scott Barker, and you know, the car's moving around a little bit, and I didn't think nothing of it. I was just driving the car, and you know, I feel it moving a little bit, didn't really think much of it. And we come back and watch the video later, and they're laughing their ass off because the car is not just moving, it's hitting the curb, coming back, hitting the curb, coming back. And so when we got back and I go, look, the B-lock ring is just scuffed all to hell, and I keep it, it's hanging on the wall as kind of a little memorial to that attack there. So I have a wife, of course, great wife, and 2 kids, a boy and a girl that have really, you know, they've had no choice in life since I've been, you know, they've been with me, but to have to live this kind of stuff. So you know, my kids grew up in my car. I mean, even I remember with my boy especially, you know, we had this, I remember my wife having to have my Camaro seat so far forward, and old cars don't have like a heat disconnect, so in the summer it's 100 degrees out, and she's pushed up against the dash so the car seat can sit behind her and stuff. So I mean, the kids have always drove my car. When I put a cage in the car, finally after it started to go fast, I put junior dragster seatbelts back there so they could be seated in there, and I never had to worry about them hitting the cage or nothing if we were on the street and got in an accident. So it's not easy life though. I mean, Nick and some of these guys are very, in a way, they may see it as lucky or not lucky. When you do the stuff we do and you have to be very spontaneous in decisions, and you're out late every night, or you're in the shop working on your car day and night all the time, if you're the only person that worries about yourself, it's not that big of a deal. But when you got a wife and the kids that want to see you, it's a very challenging deal. And in many ways, I'm lucky that we have the group of guys we do, and that I have Nick, because you know, he carries a lot of burden that I don't have to deal with, because if I have to leave to go to kids games or spend time with my family sometimes, you know, Nick has to carry some weight on that, and that does, it's a good yin and yang. And I think at some point I hope for him that he finds somebody, and then at that time my kids will be a little bit gone. My wife probably won't want to see me as much, and then we can reverse roles a little bit. But my family's been awesome with it. They said they haven't had a lot of choice in the matter, but and they I hear it sometimes, but for the most part they deal with it pretty good, and I think they enjoy it. I mean, not they say they didn't have a choice to enjoy it, but it's kind of grown on them, and we have fun with it. We try to make a lot of the races we go to vacation also. That helps. So I've been selling parts and stuff, slinging stuff on the side for probably, man, it's probably been 15 years now. And I think you hear that with like a lot of racers or guys that have any kind of hobby. Your regular job can never pay the bills or do anything. Like, you can't get other stuff from that. Your like regular job just keeps you alive, and if you want to do cool stuff on the side, you kind of got to make money other ways. So for me back then, it was like, okay, if I sell parts, I can make some money, but then also that means I get everything I need for maybe a little bit of a discount, and every bit helps. So, I've been selling parts on the side, on the net a little bit, out of my garage for a long time, and Nick had kind of talked like, hey, what if I kind of want to do the fabrication thing. He just did the cage in the Malibu himself with a freaking scratch start TIG of all things, and in building his car and doing the turbo kit on that, he kind of figured out, I think that he liked it a lot, and that honestly with the tools he had, which was nothing, he was pretty good at it. So we at that point in time, me and Nick, we talk every day on the phone. I call him on the way home from work and kind of see what's going on, and I was kind of pushing him like, look dude, if you want to do this, now's when you need to do it, because again, don't do it like where you're at my spot, you're freaking almost 40 and you got 2 kids and a wife and bills and stuff, because like that's a horrible idea. If you really want to do it now, because you're 20 years old or whatever, you have no bills, you don't have any debt of any kind, you can do anything you want now, and you don't have a lot holding you back. And I said, look, you come to my place, I got a shop at home that's, you can do whatever you want in it, man. It gives me and Nick are brothers basically, so whatever's mine is his kind of deal. And sometimes I regret that occasionally when he's breaking all my shit, but that's okay. And so I kind of was like, dude, just come up here and work, because anywhere else, like, you're gonna have to be all or none. To try to do it on the side, I try to tell him, like, I've been doing this part stuff on the side for a long time, and you can do okay at it, but until you really fully commit, you're never gonna get there. And at your age, just jump in the water, and you got nothing to lose. He was very fortunate because he has an HVAC background. I mean, you can go anywhere in the world and do HVAC stuff. It's like, dude, there's zero risk for you. You can go get that job any day in the week you want. So just do it, man, because Nick, he's a very talented kid, and we can't tell him all this stuff because his freaking head will get too big. But he's very smart. He learns very quickly, and he has kind of that thirst for knowledge, and especially at that time in the fabrication stuff, man, he was, he's self-taught on welding. I mean, that says enough. And all he did was sit around watching welding videos all day, which even if you wanted to weld, that seems like some boring shit to sit around watching all day. But he did, and he picked up on all the things he needed to pick up on to do good at it, and with just a little bit of practice. So, that kind of was the start of the M.A.K thing, and it really started with just Nick doing it by himself, and him coming up here. Finally, I convinced him into just moving up here. If you need to stay with me for a while, it's fine, but use my shop, whatever. I get to live my dreams through him a little bit at the time, because I still had to go work a real job, and he's sitting home playing in my garage all day, having fun doing race car shit, and I'm sitting in an office doing stuff, which whatever. But so yeah, when I was able finally to convince him to come up, that was the real start of it. That made something happen, and then after that, he just took it and ran, and as things started to roll and get busier, then it was finally to the point where it's either now I have to fully commit, because I was doing work on the side too, but Nick was really just doing fabrication as far as Mid-America Customs go, and then I was kind of still just doing my thing, doing some tuning and selling parts, and we were just starting to stack so many cars up around the house, getting yelled at because I had cars all around the house, and shit rodeo every day where we got cars getting pushed in, pushed out, and no room for any of our own stuff either. So it was like, let's have the hard discussion with my family of, if we're going to do this, we need to like make the full commitment, and now's the time, because I'm not getting any younger. He needs to make a bigger move. Something needs to happen, and that's kind of, then we had a lot of long talks in that garage with my wife to convince her that it was going to work and be a good idea. And I think most days she's still on board with that. There's some days that she's not sure if we're always making the right decision, but the one thing that I told Nick, and I do believe this, and he's got this attitude and I'm the same way. If we want something, and it's in general anybody too, if you want something bad enough, it doesn't matter. You'll get it one way or another. Like if you really want it, you'll do whatever it takes. So if maybe, even if we failed initially, and we could still fail now, who knows, we'll figure something else out and we'll still end up getting somewhere with what we want. It's just part of it. There's struggles in life, but if you just got the right attitude and a willingness never to give up and just plow through roadblocks, I mean, it might be a hard road there, but eventually you're going to make it. I don't know if that answered the question or was good enough. Or...
Yeah, remember how long? Guess I always been this way, running 90 miles a minute all night and day, doing things that'd kill a lesser man or get him locked up tight. Never meant to hurt nobody, no I ain't like that, just trying to make my way any way I can. There's a lot of folks out there wanna slow me down, make me act right.